Hello my friends, I'm really happy to see you here. If you are not a subscriber yet, now it's a good time to subscribe. I will remind you later, but you can do something good for mankind now. Okay, if not for it, at least for me. Thank you. Enough of this mundane talk. The model is spinning. What you see is the condition of the previous episodes. No weathering on the wheels and tracks are done. In this video we are going to learn how to make the weathering and we will finish this model. I'm really happy about it because I would like to do something else. You know, this is the state when fatigue comes and you don't want to play with this toy anymore. I always try to get out of it somehow and not leave open projects. It's known that the first thing I always do when the weathering is in progress is wash. Here I put an almost black product from AK on the surface of the model, which hasn't been protected in any way. There is neither glossy varnish or satin. There is a clean paint coating. And as you can see, wash works very well and work on it goes without any problems. In fact, if I hadn't filmed, it would have taken no more than 45 minutes to do the entire model. Of course, here and there it was necessary to use more thinner to wash off the excess, but overall everything went without a problem. A big thank you to my patrons who support coldemonspl every month. I really appreciate it and hope you are satisfied with the content you get in return. If you also want to be my patron and find yourself in this team, please check my website and choose one of the levels of the involvement to have the access to extra materials. I think you won't be disappointed. If you can, let your modeling friends know about it because maybe someone will also want to join the team. So please take a look at my Patreon site and consider joining. Still using AK products, I decided to make some stains. Winter streaking grime is an effective tool, but we can also do it with oil paints. It depends what do you like. Small amounts and thinner and we spread the product on a given surface. I remember my first attempts many years ago when these products appeared on the market. Oh my god, it was so long ago, probably in the last century. Anyway, the job is done, the next effects have appeared and add realism. There is no point in discussing this. Some energy to stay awake in the middle of the night. Highly recommended. I know I said the amount of chipping will be limited on my models, but here maybe not limited but certainly less than before. Just because damaged camo makes the model look very effective and adding a lot of chipping would do nothing or even hurt the final result. Of course, I used dark brown acrylic paint and the application was done with fine brush and sponge. I focused on the edges which were most exposed to the work of the crew's shoes and occasionally surfaces where they could appear during the service. In addition, around the heat traces to emphasize their appearance even more. Easy peasy. I also made some chipping on details such as towing cables. All in all, I need to make some separate tow cable painting video to show how to do it. I guess I already talked about it a while ago, but there is still a lot of things to do and it's not always possible to spend 1 or 2 evenings doing something extra. Apart from the chipping, I also added a bit of rusty coating. I have diluted the paint in various proportions. I mixed a bit of oil paint with a thinner and put such a filter on a specific element. I applied it in several layers and as a result the color of the ends changed significantly. Thanks to this, the ropes have a greater contrast to the basic tone and to the white. It was different in the hit places on the fenders and different on the steel plates because there is also added a little silver on the edges. Just exactly like here. And of course I use the accelerator to make things go faster. Time is money. When I started to work with oil paints, the next step was to paint the dirt. For me, the best for this purpose is dark grey paint, which perfectly imitates dirt and which you can create some nice effects. On white it's very visible and you don't need to make a lot of effort to quickly see the effect of the work, even if you work with small amounts of paint. There is a bit of work on basic camo, but it's worth the time we spend on it. If I can tell you where to paint such effects, the easiest way is to ask yourself where the crew has their moving paths on the vehicle and where dirt accumulates. These are the key questions. Every vehicle has its nooks and crannies and that's where you have to go with the paintbrush. The same as for the edges of the hatches, where we need to make some brush work and then some pencil polishing, just to simulate what the crew leaves on the surface of the armor. I mean dirt, of course. On the engine plate you can also afford a bit of artistic freedom because this is a place that collects unbelievable amounts of all kinds of filth. It's easy to see when you look at the photos of the equipment that is now on the Ukrainian war. The good photos show the entire 100% realistic weathering, and we can copy it to our models. I also did some sort of cut off the base camo and winter camo lines. I just painted the line that appeared after airbrushing with white paint, and it was a good step. I did even more when the turret was on its place. Maybe it's some kind of fake shadow, but for me it's like a filth, or you can call it whatever you want. I go back to the towing cables and more precisely to the cable itself, leaving the ends alone. First a dark wash, and when it dries up, the diluted rusty one should be allowed to penetrate exactly between the individual lines of the entire weave. After drying, a bit of polishing with a pencil, and we have an almost finished piece. Later I will add some mud, maybe not to unify, but to make it more dirty and to make them look used. I have a bit of mixture of pigments that is made of the debris that always falls off during application. I gathered these remains into the container, and this is how an earthy shade was created that I will now put on the model. I focused mainly on nooks and crannies where the crew wouldn't wipe the dust with their uniforms, and I apply it to the horizontal surfaces. Now we just need to stick the pigment to the surface with a small amount of thinner, but it's better to add more than less, especially if you are going to use the accelerator. Now it's time for the mud. Of course the same shade as on the wheels. Small amounts will look better than clogging everything up more. All the brushes will be perfect for this. When the first layers dries up, you can go ahead and start applying dark mud to make it a little damp. I don't cover all the muddy areas, but I try more to make random stains. After drying it won't sparkle, but we'll fix it with satin varnish. A bit of small spots will also work well with the hull. A little less at the front and much more at the rear where there are no fenders. On the edges of the fenders such dirt seems necessary, and it would be strange to leave these elements clean. Now it will be seen that the vehicle is in field service. No doubts at all. As I mentioned, to make some wet mud is enough to lightly rub the necessary fragment with satin varnish, especially on tracks that deal most with wet surfaces. But here only in the middle sections, exactly as I showed in the previous episode. Tracks dry from the outside, so moisture will stay the longest in the middle of each link. Blackening the exhaust pipes with black pigment takes literally a minute of work, but the effect is great. It's worth remembering about it. The same metallic sheen on a machine gun certainly won't hurt. It's also necessary to polish some parts with a pencil. Its definite advantage is that the shine is visible depending on the angle at which you look at the part. And the precision of the application, of course. It's very simple with a sharpened pencil. Some fuel stains are easy to do with a ready-made product or with a mixture of oil paint and white spirit. Irregular stains will look best. It's also worth making a different intensity of the color, then the stains will be more diversified. I very often scratch the vertical surfaces of the fenders with a knife to make scratches that appear after driving through bushes or scratching branches of small trees. It's worth being careful not to damage the paint layer too much. Scratched paint can be left or removed from the model. Sometimes it looks really cool if there are any scraps hanging on the fenders, but it all depends on individual preferences. Okay, whoever has been watching my channel for some time knows that I like to attach chains to my models, so now one couldn't be missing. I glued it to the towing cable with PVA glue, enough to keep the chain in place. And now I can say that the model is ready. It was the first step in this project and the biggest one, and now I hope the rest will go faster, although painting figures is ahead of me, which is always a challenge. To sum up, I am very pleased with the result. I know it's so standard blah blah blah, but it is. What if the model didn't work out? I don't know, hope I won't be in that situation. But now I have an idea for a short film about my models that I have built, but I don't like them. What do you think? Okay, there is only one king, and this is the Konigstiger. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's all for today. See you next time. Cheers!